Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, what we're going to talk about is how to build a carbohydrate, specifically the carbohydrate named glucose. All right, so we are going to build a molecule named glucose, and it belongs to the carbohydrate family. All right, now glucose has a formula of C6H12O6. So this molecule contains 6 carbon atoms, 12 hydrogen atoms, and 6 oxygen atoms. Glucose is super special because it is a molecule that plants, animals, and humans like us need so that we can store or produce energy for ourselves, okay? And this is the quickest way that we can produce energy by eating glucose, and that glucose goes to our cells, and the glucose is broken down and used so that we can make ATP. So, but at the end of the day, today what we want to focus is on the molecule. What does it look like? I want you to build it, feel it, okay? So that way, when we talk about it in class, you actually have something in your mind that's concrete. So I'd like to make sure that, you know, when we talk about these things, it's not abstract. So we want to make sure that you understand how to build it, okay, what it is, and be ready to recognize it on a lab practical. All right? Now, this special molecule also is produced by plants, okay? So that's why plants need water, they need CO2, and they need sunlight so that they can actually produce its glucose. So glucose is super special, all right? So now let's talk about how to build this guy, all right? So step one is going to be build the ring. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, what ring? Okay, what are you talking about, Rodriguez? Okay, so here is the ring, all right? So the big part is, okay, see this O? That's one of the 6 oxygens, all right? Now, this oxygen is actually connected to a carbon. Each corner here is actually a carbon. All right. Now, why aren't they listed there? Because this is actually a drawing from that you would get in a college class or in a university class when you're studying organic chemistry. So this is actually an advanced drawing because these molecules, remember, carbon can form huge molecules, and so you know, scientists don't necessarily want to draw all the carbons out. So they have this shorthand notation where they know if there's a corner. Okay, like this is another corner, this is another corner, this is another corner, another corner. Okay, so all those corners represent carbons, all right? So this, we're going to call this carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3, carbon number 4, carbon number 5, and carbon number 6. So here are all 6 carbons in the molecule, all right? And so the ring starts by taking a oxygen, all right, and what we're going to do to it is we're going to connect it to a carbon, okay? So that's what we're going to do. So here's a carbon, okay, represented by the black marble, right? Okay, it has 4 holes, right, because carbon bonds to 4 things. And now we have a covalent bond, okay, that joins the atom, the oxygen atom, to a carbon atom. Now we're going to join the first carbon to the second carbon, okay? So here it is. Here's our carbon. We're going to add it. And now we have gone ahead and connected carbon 1 to carbon 2. All right? So that's what we have. Now we're going to connect carbon 2 to carbon 3. So this line right here, okay, that right there represents a bond between carbon 2 and carbon 3. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So here's our carbon, here's our covalent bond. We're going to attach the 2 together. The 2 carbon atoms are sharing electrons, okay, and that's why that covalent bond is formed, right? And now we have the beginnings of our ring, okay? We're almost, you know, 3/4 of the way done. So now the next step is connecting the third carbon, 1, 2, 3, to the fourth carbon, okay? So now, here we go. Here's our carbon, here's our covalent bond, and there you have it. Okay, we have connected the third carbon to the fourth carbon. Okay, now what we got to do is connect the fourth to the fifth carbon. All right, so here's another carbon, here's another covalent bond, bang, stick that in there. Now, what are we missing, guys? Okay, we're just missing this covalent bond here. So then here's my covalent bond. There you go. There you go. All right, and now we have just finished step one, which is building the ring. And in this case, the ring in glucose is a hexagon because it has 6 sides. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hexagon, right? Different carbohydrates have different ring structures, okay? And glucose, okay, happens to have a hexagon. Some carbohydrates have pentagons as rings, okay? Like the ones found in DNA and RNA. So now here is our ring, okay? Now what I need you to understand is now this ring, okay, it's very important that you have the O. When we split this molecule, okay, you almost can think of it like the right side and the left side, okay? When you're looking at the diagram, you want to have the oxygen, okay, looking at you like this on the right side. If you have it like this, okay, then you're going to build it wrong, okay? So always make sure that your oxygen, okay, is on the side where your diagram is, okay? That's very important because now by doing that, you have these holes right here that you can see, all right? Those would be, that's going to be like the top of the molecule, okay? And the holes on the bottom, that's the bottom part of the molecule, okay? Why is that important? Because now we're going to start step 2. Now, step 2 is adding the bottom pieces. Now, what the heck, Rodriguez? What are you talking about, bottom pieces? Now, notice these parts here. Okay, see this line right here? Notice kind of it's pointing down towards the paper. Okay, the bottom of the paper. Here's another one. Okay, here's another one. Okay, here's another one. Right? And then finally, here's another one. All right? Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that you need to add to the bottom portions of this ring. Okay? So now let's take a look at this OH. What the heck's an OH? Remember? An OH is simply an oxygen connected to a hydrogen. Okay? So it was going to look like this. Oxygen connected to a hydrogen. Now, notice here are the top holes. We're going to add it to the bottom piece, to the bottom hole of the first carbon. Okay? It's very important that you remember this is the first carbon, the one that's on the right side of the oxygen. Okay? This one over here, that's the 5th carbon, and that's always the case. Okay? So, now we've added what goes on the bottom. Let's add the second one. So let's go to number 2. Let's add the hydroxyl group or the OH at the bottom. Okay, here you go. And so now think of this like the first 2 legs of the molecule here, right? Okay, or think of this like a table, right? And then these are the legs. Okay, so that's what you're adding. Now the next thing that you're going to add is the hydrogen on the bottom, okay, of carbon 3. So here we go. There's carbon 3. 1, 2, 3. Here's the hydrogen. Okay, we're adding the hydrogen. See that? All right. So now what we're going to do, okay, is we're going to go to carbon 4. Now we're going to add the hydroxyl group, okay, to carbon 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here's the bottom hole. Add that there. Okay, now, as you can see, it's starting to stand up, right? And now we got carbon 5. Carbon 5, you're going to add a hydrogen, okay, to the bottom. So here's my bottom hole, okay, and as you can see, all the holes that are left that are unoccupied, okay, are on the top. You can see them from the top, okay? And on the bottom, you have your hydroxyl group, hydrogen, hydroxyl group, hydrogen. So now we're finished with step 2. Okay, now let's talk about step 3. Step 3 is adding the top pieces. So now we got to fill the top holes, okay, in the same order that we did step 2. So we're going to start with the first carbon. Okay, and on the first carbon, notice, okay, the top piece is this, the hydrogen, right? See that? See how it's sticking up? So we're going to add hydrogen to the first carbon, all right? So there's my oxygen. The first carbon is always on the right. Okay, all right, there it is, right? First hydrogen. Now we're going to add the second hydrogen to the second carbon, right? So now here's my hydrogen. Here's 1, 2. Here's my second carbon. Now there you go. Now these two carbons are complete. Now let's continue to move, okay, to 1, 2, third carbon. Now notice the third carbon has a hydroxyl group sticking up. So now we're going to use that third carbon to attach the hydroxyl group of the OH, and there you have it. Okay, now we have, okay, that piece. And notice, okay, every carbon pretty much has, okay, 2 H's and an O. 2 H's and an O. Okay, all right, 2 H's and an O. All right, now let's go to carbon number 4. Carbon number 4 has a hydrogen that's on the top. So now we're going to add this hydrogen. Boom. Okay, see that? There you have it. Okay, we are almost done. We are now to carbon 5. Now, carbon 5 is kind of tricky because it has this whole thing, this whole attachment here, the CH2 OH. Now, the key thing here, guys, okay, that I want you to remember is carbon 5 right here is attached to carbon 6. Okay, it's attached to carbon 6. When you connect it, all right, go ahead and attach the carbon first. Okay, see that? Here's my 6th carbon. There you have it. Okay, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now we have that. Now, take a look. It's H2. So now you have to attach 2 hydrogens, 1, 2, to that carbon. All right? Now, you also have an OH. So the only way you can attach an OH is by attaching the oxygen to the carbon, and then here's the extra H, OH. And now we have just completed a glucose molecule. Okay, notice how pretty it is. Okay, it has a ring structure. Okay, it has carbon, it has oxygen and hydrogen. Okay, so it's very important, okay, that you guys understand 3 things about a carbohydrate. Okay, so for example, in class, okay, I'm going to show you different molecules, and you should be able to identify why carbohydrates, if it's a carbohydrate or not. Okay, and so how do you do that? Well, okay, remember, just like glucose, all carbohydrates, okay, are going to have all 3 things. Number 1, notice the carbohydrate has a ring. Okay, so when you look at a molecule, okay, now, is it a carbohydrate or not? Okay, so for example, let's take a look at this molecule here. All right, let's take this molecule here. All right. Okay, let's make up a molecule really quickly. Okay, here we go. All right, now, there we go, one more. All right, now. All right, so check this out. So now, is this a carbohydrate? Right? Now, you would think maybe yes, because this looks like a ring, but actually that's a double bond, so this doesn't count as a ring. So this molecule wouldn't be a carbohydrate because it doesn't have a ring, right? So all carbohydrates have to have a ring. Second, all carbohydrates, okay, have CHO in it, okay, and only CHO. Okay, let me emphasize, only CHO. They only have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Okay, so for example, amino acids, okay, have a nitrogen in it. So any molecule, if I show it to you, If it has a nitrogen, then right away you know it's not a carbohydrate, because think about the name. Carbo means carbon, hydrate, okay, that sounds like water, doesn't it? Okay, carbon with water, right? So that leads us to our third part. All carbohydrates have, okay, for every one carbon, it's gonna have two hydrogens, and for every carbon, it's gonna have one oxygen. So it's gonna have a ratio of 2 to 1. What the hell does that mean? That means that every time there's if there's one carbon, there's going to have one oxygen. If there's 5 carbons, the molecule should have 5 oxygens. If it has 5 carbons, then the molecule should have 10 hydrogens. Just like the formula here in glucose. Notice, okay, 6, okay, twice as many hydrogen and the same amount of oxygen. So all your carbohydrates need to have a ring, only CHO, and this ratio of 1 to the 1. So remember these details when you have to identify certain molecules, okay? So here it is, glucose, it's a carbohydrate because it has a ring. It's only made out of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and for every carbon, okay, you literally have 1 oxygen and 2 hydrogens. See that? Okay, carbo with water, carbohydrate. All right, so hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you understood it. If you didn't, go back, review it a couple times, and shoot me any questions. Okay, see you next time.